Hey guys, so it is my last day in Australia, and I wanted to give you a little bit of a rundown of the country, at least of the 2 cities I've been to. So this is not all-encompassing at all. And I even have a list here of stuff I want to talk about. Now to start, I've only been to 2 cities. There was the Gold Coast and Sydney. And the Gold Coast is a lot like Miami Beach, maybe San Diego, Carlsbad, something like that. And, you know, Sydney reminded me a lot of Philadelphia. And maybe it's because, I don't know if it's the architecture. You know, you look at the architecture, I could be in Philadelphia right now. And I think it's just because this was all kind of built all around the same time. So that, you know, that could be it. Friendly, nobody here was rude. It was actually kind of interesting. When I was on the plane, I landed in Sydney, and when I was on the plane to the Gold Coast, the stewardess or flight attendant asked me, you know, oh, you're going there on holiday? And I'm thinking, like, what business is it? Yeah, I turned the New Jersey on, right? Like, what business is it of yours where I'm going and what? Yeah. It's like a combination of being from New Jersey and being in the intelligence community and always afraid of elicitation, right? Like, what business is it of yours where I'm going or why I'm going there, lady, right? But I was also served like a sausage pocket on the plane. That sausage pocket was actually pretty good. And speaking of sausage, when I'm done this video, I gotta go to Bunnings, which is a hardware store. It's almost like the Australian equivalent of Home Depot or Lowe's. And on weekends, they make sausages, or they sell sausages and bread for, you know, charity. And so you have various charitable groups or sports teams come into Bunnings and they sell sausage. They call it a sausage sizzle. So I'm gonna go to that in a couple of hours. And I'll let you know. I'll make another video about that. But yeah, everybody here is pretty darn friendly. And I was actually I wasn't really sure what to expect from that. One other interesting thing is there's really no such thing as Australian food. I thought, like, oh, getting Australian food here. You know, is that like a kangaroo burger? I don't freaking know. But I think I've been here, you know, 5-6 days. I've had Italian food, I've had Chinese food, I had Indian food last night. I guess about the only real Australian food I've had was sausages, and I had steak. I had steak at this one restaurant that was right by the Sydney Opera House, and it was actually some pretty darn good steak. And I actually learned a little bit about barbecue here, like why barbecue is so popular. It's probably why the sausage sizzles are so popular at that hardware store. It seems like Australians really have a thing about cooking outside. Like, barbecue is kind of part of their national identity. And you see a lot of restaurants, at least in the Gold Coast, that have outside seating or are open to the outside. I was actually surprised at the number of stores that were open to the outside. Like, if you tried to do that in Washington, D.C., where I kind of live now, or I should say in the DMV, because I live in Silver Spring, but, you know, if you tried to have open outdoor seating or open outdoor stores in Washington, D.C., you would just get robbed blind, you know? Which, speaking of which, I got to talk about crime. So this is Hyde Park in Sydney. I think there's a church service going on right there. It's actually kind of a nice park. There's a Anzac Memorial. I'll show you that. I went to the Anzac Memorial. They really did a good job with that, and it's actually really sad. Like, I knew about Gallipoli, which was this mainly a British Australian operation during World War I, but I guess I really didn't understand Gallipoli, right? So I started talking about Australian food. I have never felt, I haven't felt unsafe here once. Not once. And I know I feel unsafe in Washington, D.C. all the time. I carry a gun. And some of that's because I'm, quote unquote famous, and I've had pro-Russian supporters stalk me and crap like that. But I can tell you here, I haven't been afraid once. I haven't felt unsafe once. There's very few homeless people here, and the ones who are homeless, they just ask you for money, and you might either give them money or say no, and they walk away. They're not like crazy homeless people, which you get a lot of in Washington, D.C. You get on the metro, or you get on the tram here, they call it, and I'm talking too much. My cigar went out. So you get on the tram here, and it's clean. There's no graffiti. There's no crazy people yelling at you on the tram. And it kind of struck me like, wow, we don't have to live like this. I don't know where America went wrong, or at least where Washington, D.C. and a number of other cities like New York or Philadelphia went wrong. But, somehow where I'm from, we all just kind of accept the fact that if you take public transportation, there's going to be crazy people on it who are going to threaten you. And it doesn't have to be the case. At least it's certainly not the case here, at least in Sydney. Speaking of which, gun owners, the American press has kind of made Australia out to be some kind of gun control paradise. And probably about 1 in 4 people that I've spoken with own some kind of firearm here in Australia. And even in Sydney, there are plenty of places to go shooting. So it's almost like, here in Australia, a lot of people seem to own firearms for, either protecting their livestock or just for sport shooting, like sporting clays, or just going to the range and shooting at cans or target shooting. They don't own pistols, and they don't own modern sporting rifles. But there's plenty of guns here. Plenty. And, just people I talk to say, oh yeah, I have a rifle certificate, and I, go shooting every weekend at the quarry. So yeah, I kind of think the American press has maybe been lying to us about how many gun owners really are in Australia. So that was kind of interesting. I want to talk about whiskey for a second here. I think that there are some things that different countries do well. It certainly seems like Australia does public transportation well. Australia does not do whiskey well. This is not a whiskey country. I think Kentucky still has a leg up on the rest of the world, because I asked for whiskey here, and they're like, oh sure, we have Jim Beam, we have Jack Daniels, and I'm like, oh my god. So once in a while, I haven't found any. I think one place had Eagle Rare, one place had Angel's Envy, but for the most part, it's just the crummy wild turkey stuff that comes out of the U.S. And I tried an Australian whiskey, and wasn't too impressed. So I think Australia is maybe more into wine and maybe gin, like other kind of spirits, but the Australian whiskey, not where it's at. That being said, smoking laws. So in the U.S., we have, or at least in some states, you have cigar clubs or cigar bars where you go in there and there's leather chairs and you sit and you have a drink and you smoke a cigar. There is no indoor smoking in Australia at all. Zero. So to smoke here, you need to be outside, and I found one outside rooftop bar. It's kind of interesting. And in Sydney, it is like the town of speakeasies. There's speakeasies freaking everywhere in Australia. And I found this one where you can go up to the top, and they have 3 tables that they kind of consider the smoking section. What's interesting is that Some people, it's almost like they've never seen a cigar before. I just don't think cigars are a thing here in Australia, so that might be it. There's people who smoke cigarettes, but nobody smokes cigars here. And yeah, the tobacco tax is pretty high. I think I bought a Dunhoff cigar here, and I think it cost about $30 roughly. $40 Australian, about $30 American. And you know, that's just their rules. I guess if you're gonna have universal health care, you want to make money somehow and discourage people from smoking. Which actually kind of reminds me, you know, you discourage people from smoking, but there are American snacks everywhere here. You know, I traveled in the military 20, 30 years ago, and I was in Europe, and yeah, there was some American sodas and some American candy, but I think over the past 20, 30 years, America has just infiltrated the rest of the world. At least they infiltrated Australia, because like everywhere you go here, you have Western fast food outlets, although Burger King is called like Hungry Jack's here. You have Western chips, Western soda, or I shouldn't say Western, American chips, American fast food, American soda, everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. And I guess I never really realized the cultural cachet American has. Even the bliss sticks. While I was here, I needed some chapstick because it got a little cold and I didn't have any chapstick with me. So I went to one of these bodegas. I don't think they call it a bodega here, but I went to this bodega and I bought some chapstick or bliss sticks. And, you know, it was made in America. I thought, wow, like what? America has just infiltrated everything from snacks to the stuff you put on your chapped lips. High tea. That's kind of a neat thing. I've been to England before, but I think that was just a layover. So I can say I've been to the airport, right? In England and to Ireland, now that I think of it. You know, I think that was on the way back. Might have been on the way back from Iraq. We stopped in Ireland. And you know, that's not really stopping in Ireland, right? If you stop at the airport. But, so I experienced tea here in Australia. Like, tea is a thing. Like, around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, you know, you sit down, you have tea. Although it seems like most Australians drink coffee. But it's, I sat down for tea, and I have no idea how to actually do tea. And it was high tea. Apparently there's a difference between tea and high tea. And high tea, they have little cakes and stuff. And I was at this hotel. I was invited to high tea. And this nice Indian woman, like, explained to me how to make the tea and how to, like, eat the cakes, because there's a certain way to do it. You don't eat the cakes with your fingers. You eat them with a spoon. I'm like, all right. And, you know, my family is from Northern Ireland. You'd think we'd know how to do tea. But, you know, after many years in America, you don't really do tea anymore, right? You're pretty much Americanized. So to me, tea is like Lipton. Although I did have some fans in Ireland actually send me proper tea, which I've made before. I just didn't know the whole rituals that you go through making this tea. Another thing about Australia, at least Sydney, is that probably about a quarter of the people here that I've seen it seems like they're from Hong Kong. And I guess when Hong Kong was handed over to the Chinese, a heck of a lot of people left and they came to Australia. You know, they just wanted that freedom more than they wanted to stay in Hong Kong. So in Sydney, it's an international city. You see people from all walks of life here. But there's a lot of people, maybe about a quarter, maybe 20% of the people here are from Hong Kong. I thought that was kind of interesting. I also noticed in the Gold Coast, there are a lot of Chinese tourists. And I guess it's like new money. And I know that, like, for years, like in the 1960s, 1970s, there was this trope of the ugly American. You know, the guy with a credit card who's dressed, you know, very casually, who's traveling all over Europe and making a scene and demanding things. And he doesn't understand that he's in a different country and people don't do things like that, or he's going into a French bakery and asking for a hamburger, you know. I think the ugly American might have been replaced by Chinese tourists with money. Because I went to I went to this one wildlife sanctuary where I saw like koalas and kangaroos and stuff. Saw a massive crocodile. I think it must have been the size of like a minibus or something, right? And I wanted to like see it do something, but apparently they can hold their breath for like 7 hours. And all right, well, guess I'm not doing anything with this crocodile, right? I'm not gonna watch anything happen with this crocodile. I was just chilling out underwater. So I was at this sanctuary, and there was like a rope line where you could see the kangaroos, and the kangaroos could come out of their enclosure, which was really only protected by a rope. And I guess the kangaroos could come out there if they wanted kangaroo food, but none of them did, you know. So this one, beyond this rope line, there were signs saying like, "This is a kangaroo rest area. Don't go beyond this rope." And there was a picture of a guy with a slash through it. Well, even if you don't speak English, you probably know what a guy with a slash through it means, right? Like, don't go here. That's pretty universal, right? So these Chinese tourists, I guess they wanted to get a picture next to a kangaroo, so they just walked over the rope line. And then another thing, when I went to high tea, this Chinese woman came in, and she took a cup, like a paper cup, and just filled the cup up with snacks. You know, I was like, wow, I know not to do that, right? So I don't know why. I don't know if a lot of Chinese tourists are like that, or whether it's just like new money, or whether I just found two like rude Chinese tourists, you know. But I was kind of like, wow, that's pretty interesting. What else do I want to talk about here? Submarines. So I thought this was pretty weird. Yeah, it seems like, at least the Australians that I talked to, but even like Australians who are working at like restaurants and stuff, when they heard my accent, they asked if I was Canadian, which I thought was kind of interesting. Like, they want to start off, I guess no American gets offended if you ask them if they're Canadian, but if you're Canadian, you get really offended if someone asks you if you're American. And they asked if I was Canadian. No, I'm American. And it seemed like they want to talk about submarines, which was not something I would think a waiter would talk about, right? Like, oh, you know, what do you think about the submarine deal? Like, I really don't have that much of an opinion on the submarine deal. I think it's probably a good idea. But I found it interesting that people here in Australia, even down to like waiters and the concierge at the hotel, followed international politics and the threat from China to the point where when they see an American, they want to talk about the submarine deal. So for those of you who don't know, America and the UK are going to sell like 6 submarines to Australia. And Australia is going to be a major partner if deterrence fails. The sirens here are weird. You hear? I don't know if you can hear that or not. Where's the sirens here are a lot different than Washington, D.C. So, yeah, it seemed like everyone kind of knows that if deterrence fails and China actually invades Taiwan, Australia is going to be a major component in kicking the Chinese out of Taiwan. And everyone here seems very aware of that, probably because they are so close to the action, right? In America, it's kind of easy to be distant from that, but when China's just a hop, skip, and a jump away from your own country, you take them a lot more seriously. So I thought that was pretty interesting that so many people here were aware of the Chinese threat. So, yeah, I can tell you this: if you're an American and you want to come to Australia, I mean, yeah, the smoking laws aren't great, but I think it's certainly worth it. It's worth it to do. It's if you get a chance to do it. You know, man, there's more fire trucks coming. Something must be going on here. You can see that back there. Oh, yeah. We're in the city. DC is like this, too. It's kind of a cool design on the back of the side of the fire truck. Here's another one. Right back there. And I think if you're an American and you if you always thought about coming here, you should give it a shot. Like I said, if you're a cigar smoker, it might be kind of tough to find a place to sit and relax and have a cigar. But the people are friendly. You know, the food is basically what you can get in America, and it's good. And yeah, there's a lot of interesting things to see here. A lot of interesting things to do that you're not going to get a chance to do anyplace else. I guess just because Australia, you know, since it was its own continent, it kind of grew its own wildlife or fauna or flora or one of those things. I'm not a freaking botanist or animalologist or whatever. Oh, no. As it turns out, that wasn't a church service. It's no to the equality bill. I don't know what the equality bill is, but usually equality sounds like a good thing, right? Oh, that's the other interesting thing about Australia. Apparently, you have to vote here. If you don't vote, you have to, I guess you pay a tax if you don't vote. And that's, you know, in America, our voting, like maybe 25%, 30% of people vote in elections, depending on whether it's a presidential election or not. That was kind of interesting, talking with people here who do vote. So that's pretty much it. I am going to try to head to Bunnings Warehouse to have a sausage sizzle. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're in Australia, hey, you know, I had a good time in your country. I really enjoyed it here, and I would definitely come back if work brought me back here. Oh man, I'm so bored! Christ on crutches with a permanent profile. That's because you have the wrong toys. You need a Ryan McBeth in action figure from the Knife Hand Company. That's right, Ryan McBeth in action figures go everywhere. Put them on your desk, your Crocs, your keychain. You can even ask Ryan advice. Ryan, why does Daddy ignore me when I'm over his house for the weekend? Because your new mommy is way hotter than your old mommy. Trading cards. You get a free trading card in every box. Now that's Ryan-rific. So come on down to the Knife Hand Company and get your in-action figure today. Alcoholism, cigarettes, and non-service connected hearing loss sold separately.